everybody. It's Matt. Thanks for checking out another episode of What You Doing podcast. This time, I'm sitting down with Epidiah Ravachol and Nathan D. Paoletta to talk about their new project, Unwritten Earth's Symposium. Unwritten Earths represents a massive undertaking for both of these guys, a new publishing company, a new podcast, and a new book that you can get now on Kickstarter. The Unwritten Earths Adventure and Hobbyist Annual is a very interesting adventure collection. 3 different adventures, each with multiple genre views on how to run them. I was, of course, very excited to see new work from these two. I'm very excited to check out Unwritten Earths Annual, but let's dive into the interview so y'all can hear more about it from them.
Had my ham radio class last night,
Ooh,
which was fun. Let's say I'm excited.
How did you learn anything?
No, it was definitely put an old guy on stage and he tells you stories of his ham radio days, which was entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know,
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely nothing wrong with that. But like also I think I got a little visual aid here. This is the book we're looking at, and like, yeah, none of that. We haven't gone over any of that. Like that, it's gonna be fun. We got time.
I remember randomly in middle school, I saw one of those like electrical circuit diagram things, and I remember looking at it and going, "Oh, that's cool. I'm never gonna use this." just like, this is never gonna come up in my normal life. This is interesting to see and understand a little bit, but
yeah, I'm down for like hieroglyphical languages like that, you know, like just the make the world a little mysterious to you, you know.
Mm-hmm. I get that. You're like they've developed this whole language, and way it's like,
and it does stuff. If you know what it is,
yeah, it's like Stargate. You've discovered the Stargate, and you're like, oh, hang on, wait a minute. They came up with this whole thing that this one little picture says like 17 things. That's wow. Can I drag the windows around? Is that a feature that? No. Okay, that's fine. Nathan can be down there. That's okay. I move everybody.
I'll be down here.
I move everybody around in editing anyway. I just wish I could, I just wish I could do it, because I would rather like me be down here and then the two of you be up there for me. But that's fine. That's how it is. That's how it is. It's okay.
Can't help you. I am just barely able to handle Discord. So any advanced tools, I'm like move a window from one place to another. That sounds.
I tried it. I was like,
my pay grade.
I was like, I wonder if I can just click and drag. I wonder if that's a setting. No, it's not.
You probably have to pay for it.
At one point, I realized when people share their screen, you can do that. You can move the and you can make them bigger and smaller, and that was like a game changer for me, because so often people are sharing their screen and they're like, now this over here, and like all of our faces are right in front of wherever they're pointing, you know.
And you're like, okay, hang on, let me.
Yeah. Let's check this out.
I've had some people say like, oh, I'm sorry for rambling so much. That's the show. That's what that's what we're here to do. Is for y'all to talk about the thing. So if you're feeling an answer and you want to, go off on a specific thing, go for it. It's never been a bad time. I've literally never sat here and gone like, God, I wish this person would shut up. Like I've never had that moment of like,
we can make that happen. Yeah.
Let's continue talking about ham radio.
Yeah.
The first episode that I've been like, oh my God. All right. Well, everybody, welcome to the podcast. I trimmed out 15 minutes here of Epi talking about ham radio. So just, you're welcome. I had to sit through that, and I'm going to spare you. Just really mean right at the top. Yeah. And hey, you know what? The thing I'm trying to do better about, I don't need to be ready. I control the edit. I control time. I'm the master.
Yeah.
So we just need to get into it. So we're going to get into it. Hi, everybody. This is Matt. Welcome to another episode of What You Doing. Today, I'm sitting down with Nathan Paoletta and Epidiah Ravachol to talk about Unwritten Earths. Say hi.
Hello.
Here we are.
I'm sorry. Hi. We already failed our first task.
Say hi,
wrong
hello,
greeting.
shut it down.
Yeah, short. You thought you were going to go too long, but turns out you had the shortest one with us.
The shortest podcast possible.
Mhm.
I'm so excited to have both of you on the show. This is so incredibly exciting. I've known Nathan for a good little bit now. And I've been tangential to Epi. We've been very lucky. I got to play a couple games. And we've stayed in orbit a little bit. So when I saw y'all had this new venture, you've worked on a couple things in the past, but you have this new big venture, big game podcast company, a massive new project. I was very excited. It's the thing that's happened a couple times now where I've been like, I should have them on the podcast. That would be fun. And then Nathan was like, does anyone want to talk about the thing? And I was like,
Right.
Damn it. Yes.
Yep.
Called it.
Yes.
And then many waiting on me to get back to you emails later.
Right.
Here we are.
That's just how it goes. The last interview, I literally had to schedule so quickly because I had thought I had sent an email 2 weeks prior. And then I was like, dang, it's a bummer that person ghosted me, but life is life. And then I was looking at my email and I was like, why do I have a draft? What do you mean I have a draft?
Yeah, it's like always the double check to be like, wait, am I the ghost in this situation?
Was it me? It was me. It was me that time.
It was me the whole time. Yeah.
But yeah, we're here to talk about Unwritten Earth's Symposium and the Unwritten Earth's Annual, now on Kickstarter, which I read through the little sample that's available on the itch page. And I'll say at the top because I'm sure we'll get into it. But everything we talk about, all the links, as always, will be in the show notes. So if you want to check out the podcast, the website, the itch page, anything like that, that'll be in the show notes. So you can go check that out. This is such a neat idea. I'm going to start the podcast that I always do by heaping a bunch of praise and excitement on the guest. This is a really, really neat idea. We said Epi was going to explain it. So Epi, why don't you go ahead, tell everybody kind of the idea behind Unwritten Earths and what y'all... Oh, I didn't do intros. What am I doing? I didn't do intros.
Fine.
Okay.
No, we're just a couple of wizards. It's cool.
Yeah.
Listen, if you don't know, I don't want to like push my nose and be like, if you don't know these two, because it's not the G plus days anymore, you know?
I know.
Yeah.
I was just thinking like the reference point for like when we were playing stuff and for like you play with Epi, it's like that was total G plus, like
amazing
right?
G plus convergence days. The ones we don't know.
If you know, you know.
It's so weird to be like, yeah, no, you missed it. This is how people feel about Vine, I think, where it's like, yeah, I was there and you don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, why doesn't everybody go introduce each other? Epi, why don't you go first?
All right. I'm Epidiah Ravachol. What should I don't know. Okay, I've made a few role-playing games over the years. Most notably is probably Dread, which is the horror game that uses Jenga. I've also done Swords Without Master, which is the one you can't find that's in Worlds Without Master issue 3. And Wolfspell, which is this massive... it's not a massive game. It's on a massive... it's on a trifold album cover. Yeah. Which is, as it turns out, like there's like now... I don't think it's games, but like people are starting to do like GM screens on. Have discovered that you can get an album printed like that for a GM screen, and it's great. It's a nice size for it, and yeah. Anyways, and another thing I enjoy doing, or at least did for the past 8 years, is talking about the Rockford Files with our other guest here. Handing it off. You go.
Great. I love it. Great segue.
Hello. My name is Nathan Paoletta. I am a independent publisher, game designer, and graphic artist. So the game that people would know is the Worldwide Wrestling role-playing game, which is all about the exciting world of pro wrestling. But that is one of a number of other games that are also very good of mine, in my opinion. Like my Edgar Allan Poe inspired horror game, The Perverse, and my GM-less vampire game, Annalise, that people still seem to be interested in, which is very exciting. Because that's almost 20 years old now.
Yeah, we're getting up there.
Which is wild. And I also did a Rockford Files podcast with Epidiah Ravachol.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we got to the end of that podcast, the Rockford Files, if you don't know, is a monumental achievement in 1900s television, starring the great James Garner as James Rockford. And if you want to know more, check out 200aday.fireside.fm. But when we got to the end of that podcast, we're like, well, we need an excuse to continue seeing each other every couple weeks. And we're both game designers. Maybe we should work on a game or something? Question mark. And here we are today.
Yeah. We continued the podcasting endeavor. That rolled in. Actually, here's the question. So we knew... I'm taking over. I'm asking Nathan questions. I hope you don't mind.
Matt, just break in whenever, but we can take it from here.
No, this is good.
So we knew we were going to do a game design podcast probably 2 years away from the end of our Rockford Files. When we saw the writing on the wall, we knew how many episodes we had left. We didn't ever expect to get there.
For the record, there's 6 seasons of the Rockford Files plus some movies, and we did our show for 7-ish years because we were not as prolific as the show. So we went longer than the show ran in the 70s. Anyway, carry on.
And in fact, when we started that podcast, it was focused on game design. We were talking about borrowing from the Rockford Files to enhance how we play games, how we write games. A lot of neat things going on in that show. I don't want to oversell the Rockford Files. That's our old project. Let me get back to where we're... About 2 years out, we're like, hey, let's do a podcast. And then last year, 7 or 8 months ago, we were thinking about, okay, maybe we should be a company. We should be an actual, work together and do some publishing. We have very similar interests, but also we have... teeth on gears. We fit into each other's grooves when it comes to certain technical skills, and
we each shore up each other's weaknesses in certain ways.
Yeah, exactly. The example I like to say is that there was a moment when I was pitching a game to Nathan, and I was like, "Oh no, I think it was just this annual." We were talking about the annual, and I was like, "And we could just make it a little zine or something like that, so we don't have to do a whole bunch of graphic design." And Nathan's like, "Epi."
What do you think I'm here for?
Why are you trying to cut me out of the process?
Right.
Yeah. And it just something exploded in the back of my head. I was like, wait a minute. It's suddenly it's the I know Kung Fu moment from the Matrix. Suddenly I have a bunch of skills I don't have.
Yeah. Yeah. And similarly, when I've been I just don't feel like I have enough time to actually write, sit down and write and conceptualize and follow an idea all the way to the end. Oh, Epi's doing that.
Yeah.
Great. Someone else is doing that part of it. Great. I don't have to.
Yeah.
Good.
I don't have to think about it. Great. And then he shares something with me and I'm like, yeah, this is better than I would have done. So
well, anyways, the point is one of the fun bits in the beginning is we were trying to figure out what to call ourselves, and we were doing a lot of back and forth, and I felt like our back and forth was a lot of each one of us trying to pre-appease the other. Do you know what I mean? We're not appease is the wrong word. We're just I
think we're both trying to give each other this is the kind of thing that you like, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was just back and forth, and when we hit it, that I don't know if the concept of the title... No, they all kind of jumbled together. But we kind of hit on this fictional concept for it that I will now relate to you. Because we're role-playing sickos, right? We can't not role-play any of this. So.
Right.
So the idea is that the Unwritten Earths are worlds that don't yet exist, the worlds of the imagination, that we can only get to by making them real, right? Like we can only get to them by role playing, and we imagine. I guess we'll put it that way. Let's imagine there's a library that has access to the works from these worlds. We get into there. We could search around, we could look things, we could do deep dives or whatever, and we can come out. We can't bring anything with us. And the memories we have fade like they do from like a dream when you wake up. But maybe we can make something of it. And the annual, that inspired the idea for the annual, which is...
So like the company is the Unwritten Earth Symposium. And so the Symposium is this gathering of those of us who are exploring the Unwritten Earths. Right. And then the annual is a collection of the cream of the crop from this fictional magazine that exists in these other Earths, the Adventurer and Hobbyist, much like the Field and Stream or Scientific American.
Yeah.
And we are collecting kind of the best of from the year 2025 into this one omnibus, annual collection. Of course, because time and space are relative, we can take stuff from the entire year. So even though our thing's coming out before 2025, we're still encapsulating the calendar year with our work.
Yeah, I feel like there's more to be said. Well, we'll get to some more stuff. We'll get to it.
What any questions?
We'll have more. We'll get to it. I love that there's like 3 layers of fiction that we have to accept.
We in our talking about it, we shorthand as this is our kayfabe, the same concept. What is the fictional reality that we have to pretend to believe in order to make these decisions for that will affect real reality? Because it's a real company. We are making things, we are taking people's money in exchange for goods and services, but having the fictional layer, not only is it fun, but also it's actually really useful because it gives us a lot of guidance for how to make decisions about what to name things, or what is kind of the general vibe of our, not that we have really settled stuff, but as we're working out kind of our voice, our shared voice for talking about this stuff, having in your head oh right, we're a group of weird world spanning wizards that are doing research, that helps guide the voice in writing a product description or something like that.
There's a real concrete example in the Kickstarter. One of the reward add-on rewards is you get to you could offer us a title to include a title of some sort of book or a periodical or something to include in the phantasmagorical bibliography of fictional books that we're going to put in this thing, and we're going to write some reviews of some of them. So that's great.
I love
you invent the book, and we'll tell you what it's about. And that just feels that's a thing that probably would not have happened if we didn't have this weird kayfabe around everything that we were doing.
No, I love that, because I love it. It is a thing that comes up every single time, every single episode so far. Is the best stuff is made when you allow yourself to be weird about it. Is especially TTRPGs, like everything, yes, but so especially TTRPGs is just weird games about being weird little guys. And the weirder you are about it, the better it's going to be, because the more you are allowing yourself and the game and the players to embody the weird and exist in the weirdness of the world. It's hilarious that the concept is there is an eternal, perpetual library of alternate reality works that a group of wizards curate and collate and research, that then put out a magazine of those works that is then annually collected into a best of collection. And that's the product that you're getting.
Yeah, that's what you're getting. Yeah, that is what we are bringing you.
And why wouldn't you? I mean, like, that's, you don't want to do all that work.
Yeah.
You don't want to, like,
let us do it for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know, just the late fees, like, it's not even worth dealing with the late fees.
Yeah, most of the Unwritten Earths are pretty enlightened, and late fees are are suspended for most things. But we
moved and our library has late fees again, and I was I was bummed. I was like,
come on,
I thought we solved this.
Right? Yeah.
Joke's on me, I guess.
Man, I love libraries, though.
I do love libraries. It's all in the books.
It's all in books.
So the actual thing, like what we are asking people to help us get into the world, is this annual. The theme is Caught Between Worlds, because we're like, look, let's just keep it easy. The idea is that we will do weirder stuff as time goes on, but we're already explaining a whole new company and concept of what we're doing.
We have to establish ourselves first.
Yeah. So there's a wizard on the cover. So just to make it very clear, like what we're doing
in a library, no less.
In a library, no less. But it's a collection of what we call system adventurous scenarios. So these are pre-made scenarios with that ask you to bring, you're going to pick whatever game system you play at your table that you enjoy. You're going to make your characters. We have some guidance for like how best to approach making characters for each individual one, depending on its deal. But we're giving the situation, the characters who are in that world, locations, beats, like story beats, depending on the nature of the scenario. And but what we're saying is that they're not system neutral. They're not agnostic to what you want to play. They are, each of them is going to suit a certain kind of game better than another kind of game. And so we include, so part of the design process for making these has been discovering the tools that we can put in as scenario designers that are easiest or most approachable to serve as like hooks for the game that you're actually playing.
Yeah.
But general enough that it could be used for multiple different individual games.
That's the first thing I wrote down in my notes is the term system adventurous, because it immediately makes me more excited than the phrase system neutral. I feel like years of seeing people use system neutral when they aren't has kind of has made me almost like angry at the phrase, where I when I see system neutral,
it's kayfabe again, right? It's like, well, let's all like, we know what you mean. Like, what kind of game will probably be best for this if it's a system neutral adventure?
Right. I think when I see system neutral, I think nicely, because I don't want anybody to feel attacked when I say this. Because if I'm attacking you, you'll know it. When I see system neutral, my general first thought is cowardice, because usually what it means is it's D&D and I didn't want to deal with the licensing of the rules, right? Or it's something generic to the point where it feels like it lacks like artistic intent. It feels like it's like you in trying to fit everything, you fit nothing. And it doesn't feel engaging to me as a reader.
That does kind of get to some of the fun challenges in creating these, is because
we're not cowards. So.
For establishment, we're not cowards.
Yeah, we're not cowards. I mean, okay, but anyways, let's say we are.
I mean, it's like, well, what's the situation? Hang on, maybe I.
Let's. Do you have a knife? I mean, like, I don't know. Like, we'll talk about it. But no, like, we went through some iterations of what to call them, like because we were kind of hitting that same thing, and we were having kind of the same problem. We don't, we weren't, we knew we couldn't say that they could go with any system because it's just patently not true. That actually, or if that's true, then the past couple of decades of my life were meaningless. So let's assume that it's not true.
Right.
So, but we did want them to like kind of suit a bunch of different kinds of games. And so thinking about how we were going to present them and how we would address that became like some of the more enjoyable challenges in designing them.
It ends up driving the actual like content in a really interesting way.
Yeah. One of the things that we do we call the approaches, and these are I'm just going to use the word vibes. These are the vibes you want when you're playing the game, right?
We originally called them vibes, and then
that was the note.
It was like, not quite right, but that's the only other like synonym that
I do love the idea that like
what we're going for.
In a design doc, it originally said vibes, and you were like, we can't call it vibes.
Vibes with a list of bullet points.
We gotta change this. We gotta change.
This is too Gen Z. It doesn't represent us.
This is, I mean, my original design documents are the worst things in the world. They're literally called LOL, like for litany of lies. Like they're just things that like, I'm just going to write down all these lies about what this product's going to be. We'll prove or disprove them as we go along. But like, and like, there sometimes where I'm like, I need a name. I'm just Exglorbo. And then the word Exglorbo will just kind of sit there forever and ever until it starts working for me, or I'm like, I really need to sit down. And anyways, the approaches are I'm going to take the one night only at the Veterans Lodge scenario, which is you're playing pro wrestlers from the turn of the last century. Who like indie pro wrestlers of the turn of the last century whose bus they're taking, they got like a bus that they're taking down to someplace and it breaks down in this rural town in Northern Virginia. And North Virginia. I have to be very specific about that.
This is an unwritten Earth.
Yeah, it's an unwritten Earth.
It's North Virginia.
Oh yeah.
And it breaks down, and the scenario is like this town, the mechanic in this town needs to get a part to come in. It's going to take a couple days, and you're about out of petty cash. You're the wrestlers, and somebody's like, "Hey, I can get the Veterans Lodge for tomorrow night if you want to do, like, people love wrestling here. Let's put on a show, and we'll split the money, and you'll have enough money for your repairs. You're going to be here anyways. Let's do it."
Mm-hmm.
That's the scenario. I'm going to spoil something, but I think it's like spoiled all over the Kickstarter page. So I don't think
it's not really a spoiler.
It's not a spoiler. A couple decades earlier, another group of arena fighters. These arena fighters come from the stars. The space gladiators crash landed outside this town. And over the decades, they were unable to repair their ship, and they've become part of society in this town. They've become the neighbors and friends and family of these people that live here, and they are eager to get back in the ring, to hear the roar of the crowd. They want those fights. So your wrestlers are going to end up, they're like putting posters up all over town, like, come see the wrestlers, taking all comers. And all comers includes, the Sword of Arcturus and the ineffable Nebulex, mm-hmm. Just horrifying aliens. And there's a number of ways you can play that. There's a number of approaches you can take. And we have like the comedy approach. We have the horror approach. In the comedy approach, we encourage you to let your players in on what's happening, because then they can play to the idea, like play their characters being ignorant of what's happening. That's a lot of good wrestle fun. There's the wrestling approach, which is just like, hey, we're going to worldwide wrestling this because why not? Like,
because like, what are we even doing here? Like, why? Why pretend? Yeah.
There's the horror. Oh, I said the horror approach. There's there's an adventure approach where it's like this is the start of like when these pro wrestlers join the intergalactic revolution to free space gladiators throughout. You know, there's all of these ways that you can run it, and so we sprinkle the scenario with these moments that say, hey, if you're doing the horror approach, do it this way. If you're doing the comedy approach, and we don't say that, like, it's not like every section is like you have to, most of it is common material, and then there's just these little bits that you can call out and say, here's how you make this a little more sinister for your horror approach, or here's how you can play it for yucks in your comedic approach.
And there's kind of two levels of that stuff, and one is the kind of call out of like, especially for the horror approach, there's a couple moments where it's like, hey, when you're talking to this guy, he's going to be hiding this truth from you, so that it is a big reveal when you get into the ring, and the challenger is Roach Commander, who has 4 arms and is ready to rip you limb from limb for a blood sacrifice. But then there's also a classic thing. But there's also business, and this came right out of stuff that we love from the Rockford Files, which is identifying just like little pieces of narration or description that, when you toss it into the scene, signify the theme or signify that tone. So like some of the like cozy business is like talking to someone, and they just have like the nicest things to say about like their new, the new neighbors, that like the new people, even though they've been there for like a decade or whatever, they're still the new people. While if you're playing it for the like the adventure approach, maybe it's more about like, like, oh, are you sure you can take them on Saturday night? Like you better get your working boots on, because we know that they're really tough. I am not sure if those are actual examples in the thing, because I don't have them off the top of my head, but that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Business is like one of the things that we've added. Like it came in independent of the approaches, and then it became obvious that it was a great angle for getting the approaches in. It's a great way to kind of make a world feel lived in, because they're just like, we just scatter throughout like little things that are just happening. They're not like
plot necessary, or like
it's not a side quest.
Yeah,
but like, here's some old guys are eating popcorn and playing
like something that a guy says that he just like, you'll hear him say it 2 or 3 times over the course of your interactions, because it's just his go-to phrase. That's a little piece of business.
And and as we were writing them up and preparing them, like, it just became obvious. It's like, here's a little bit of business that really fits this approach and also contradicts this other approach. So let's call it out. Let's, add it to the approach. And it's, I'm pretty excited about getting that stuff out there, because that's, Nathan and I are, I would say we're design junkies. We're a little bit of system junkies. Like when it comes to games that like, the scenario of a game absolutely can excite me. I'm a big fan of the fiction of things or whatever. But like when you start telling me like, and then you have like this little rule here that you have to follow, I'm like, oh, what are the implications of this rule? How does that work? And I think that shows up quite a bit in how we like. I find that I end up writing rules for myself to write things. Like I start writing it and I'm like, all right, let's figure out some rules to this. Let's make this.
How do I put a mechanic on this?
Yeah. How do I make this a game? Not take. Although that does happen, like, but like specifically, like how do I make the process of writing this a game as well? Like, what's the...
With some structure you can give yourself.
Yeah, structure. That's a good way to... Sounds serious.
Yeah, listen, I don't want to go right back to how I was calling people cowards, but it's a great jump in. Talking about system neutral stuff. The thing that bothers me about system neutral stuff, and Epi gave a fantastic explanation, so it feels silly to say this afterwards, but it's my show, so I'm going to.
Go for it, yeah.
Is this thing does exactly what I wish all of those designers had done to some degree, which is to say, hey, it's system neutral in that I guess you could run it with any game. I can't do anything to stop you. But here are the vibes, right? It is, it's we want it for horror based systems. It's a sci-fi thing, in a way that, like, I feel like people have been trying, and if people have done it well and I missed it, then hey, I would love to know examples. Do you know what I mean? In that fun way of, like, if people have done this, I would love to know, because I feel like every time people do something system neutral, they always have like a winky, like, but it's real, like, I wrote it for this, and I sanded it down a little. But I really love the approaches for this, because it feels like when you have the approaches, it feels like you're saying, like, yeah, it's these genres, and there's any number of games that fit in these genres, and it's whatever game you decide you want to play. And it's fun to, like, feel like that was an intention from the jump, right? Of like, yeah, it's like this or this, whatever you want to use.
Yeah, I think a lot of the, like, I think where that is happening, I think a lot of the time that happens on the, like, initial direction of a scenario or something, right? Like, this is a horror scenario, right? And so then or this is a side, I'm thinking, like, there's a whole world of, like, people doing stuff, doing adventures and stuff for, like, Mothership and for, like, Morkborg, right? Where it's like those are, for a system, but also you can use those with lots of different, systems that are of a similar granularity. But those are already aiming at a certain, like, genre type of play from the jump. And then I think we were trying to explore the idea of, like, instead of saying, this is a pro wrestling horror adventure, have it the fun. It's fun to be working to like try and articulate. Here's a set of here's the arena to play in, and then take that genre approach down into the story stuff, as opposed to, like, well, if you're not into horror games, you're never going to play this adventure, right? Because it's a horror adventure, and have that flexibility kind of, like, inside as opposed to on the surface. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, I think the other fun thing that we've discovered is that each of them is kind of a different kind of scenario. So like One Night Only, the way that it's kind of the scale that it's at, is has this, like, story path to it, right? Like,
there's, like,
sure,
2
obviously
days of events,
here's all the events,
that, and then that big timeline view.
Yeah, the unwritten timeline. It is unwritten because you can diverge. Obviously, it's your game. You do whatever you want. But if you need a touch point, or you're looking for what's our next scene, right? It's there for you. And you're going to end up in the ring, and because that's, like, why else are you playing?
There's if you don't want to do that, then, like, we can't help you.
Right.
Void. all warranties are void.
The great scene where we just sit and we watch the monsters wrestle and we go home.
Which I think, though, if you're playing the cozy version, you could totally do that.
Actually,
you know what? I don't actually want. You know what? We will be enthusiastic audience members, because you need to hear an audience, and that's what we're going to do for you.
Well, then it becomes about very skillfully betting on the competition to make the money that you need.
But so that, like, style of story and kind of the scale that it's at, I mean, obviously, I wrote a custom move for Worldwide Wrestling because part of this is also kind of like expanding scope of like, here's, this might be a reason for you to look at some of our other games. But also I think it means that one is suited for systems that are on that kind of like PBTA scale of how the rules work, right? Like you're going to have these scenes, and then like players are probably going to like need to roll some dice to figure out a thing, and then you're going to move on to another scene. And so it's going to, so in terms of the, saying a system adventurous, like that's kind of the wedge of kinds of games that will probably work well for that. One of the other ones, the Mission Beyond the Moon, which is a Sword and Planet adventure story where you're NASA astronauts in the 70s sent on a mission to the dark side of the moon, where it turns out there's an interdimensional portal that takes you through to another galaxy and spits you out in a Land of the Lost-esque jungle planet where you land in the middle of a conflict between two wizards and the indigenous dinosaur people.
I mean, who hasn't been there?
Right.
Classic.
The classic.
I just got
classic
back.
Story.
Yeah.
So
that one has a more open-ended structure to it, and is more kind of like we're a little more like location based, where it's like, if you go to this spot, this is what's happening, or if you go to this, or if you go to talk to this wizard, here are their interests with the other characters that are in play. And that one is going to have some Swords Without Master Scrolls, because it is, a sword and sorcery extravaganza. But it'll also be suitable for like, you go to a spot and you might have like a fight with a dinosaur. So like it'll work pretty well for like OSR kind of games and stuff like that.
If you can imagine a game where that could happen.
Right.
Like, yeah.
What sort of games would you fight a dinosaur?
Right. Yeah. So, that's a slightly different, wedge of possible game system that you might want to bring to the table. And I think part of the design is kind of being like, okay, if I'm expecting the group to be playing that style of game, here's kind of the hooks and tools to make that, like, to support that.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to be at a slightly different level of, like, I guess I'd keep saying granularity, but like it's just going to have to be phrased a little differently. Kind of organized a little differently, so that those are all available to the GM running that game.
How did you settle on these like specific kind of adventure? I don't want to say seeds, because like seeds implies that they're small, and your part of the game is fleshing them out, when I feel like these are already pretty solidly built out. How did you settle on like these three specific examples that like are so different? And as a great example, I'll read the little description for the one Nathan didn't mention, which is Escrow of the Damned, which is described as an HOA crawl, which is hilarious to me.
That's Nathan's, like, that's a brilliant addition.
And they're just so incredibly different. Like, how did you how did we settle on these?
How and why?
How?
Yeah. The Escrow of the Damned is also, again, a little different in scale, so that and that's the one that's a little more, that's the one that's most still in process in terms of the writing and design. But that one, it's Epi's brainchild, but there's the premise here is that you're playing in a world where the devil's realtor is willing to sell anyone their dream home, but of course it's going to come at a cost. It's they're all going to have a little monkey's paw situation going on. So the characters are going to be in an 80s suburb where this little subdivision has sprung up full of cursed houses. And then the scenario is going to actually be a little more of a generator of what they are and what their secrets are and what the curse is.
Yeah,
and
like
then
the people who the people are that have accepted a cursed home,
from the Devil's Realtor.
Yeah, part of the HOA contract is that they can't talk about it. They can't tell you anything about the curse or do anything about it. But they also are cursed, and they want to get rid of it. And so you generate them, you generate the curse. It's a so you can play it out as like, we're just going to do one scenario. We're just going to come up with one, or you could be like, this is a campaign thing. You could do it a little Scooby-Doo style, or one of the core inspirations for me was the 90s horror television show Friday the 13th, the series, which, if you haven't seen it, has nothing to do with the movies Friday the 13th, but there's like production company overlap or something like that, and I think that's why they had the title. But it's just about two cousins that inherit a antique store that sold cursed antiques, and now they have to go retrieve them because you can't let the cursed antiques be out there.
You can't. That's
right.
You're responsible for that.
Yeah.
That's
a
great premise, by the way. That kind of rules.
Yeah, it is.
So that should be fun. And then and then there'll be like a light aspect of like moving from house to house. That's like kind of the crawl part. Like you could use some kind of, if you have a game that does like hex crawl or point crawl like mechanics, you could use that. But the houses are the hexes, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so those are those. Yeah. So that's the spread of the scenarios. I guess I don't know, how do we come up with those? They mostly came from Epi knocking up some ideas of what we could potentially do, and then kind of refining them, and then we kind of refined them.
Yeah, the initial idea was, I think it's kind of funny that like the three scenarios in particular came from. I think I just sat down the night before we were going to meet about something, and I was like, I'm just going to bang out like a example of what one of these annuals would look like.
Could have in it.
Could have, yeah. And those three scenarios were in it. There were some other things that like aren't in this one, but maybe in another. That's where the sort of the theme kind of came from, because there was like this moment of like, there needs to be something to hold it together. And so this caught between worlds.
Yeah.
And then we talked about it, and I think initially I wasn't thinking that these would be the final, like they were just like a start thing. And in fact, like the Escrow of the Damned has changed quite a bit from what it was in the beginning. Like you can follow the lineage, but it's not necessarily the same. And it just kind of, we're like, okay, well let's make these. Like
I think it was kind of like, so here's I mean this is a bit of like, I don't know, my creative philosophy that I've imposed on how we're doing it. But it was like we know what we want to have in the, like we want to make this annual, like that whole the whole concept of like the annual being the collection of the scenarios, like that was, that's the goal.
Yeah.
And then these ideas were like good enough. Like I'm like, oh, those all sound fun. Yep. Let's, just kind of like work them out and see how they go. And in that process, never hitting a point of being like, this actually is not going to work. Let's scrap it. And like, obviously if that happened, if we got to something where like, this just doesn't seem like it's going to be fun, or like this isn't coming together, we change it. But rather than try and like, let's articulate the perfect group of concepts to like make into this thing, it was more like, all right, we know what the thing wants to be, so let's develop these towards being a good fit for the thing. And like make it good in the design process, not like necessarily try and have like the best idea right off the jump. That's really hard.
Just make it perfect the first time. That's
right. Yeah, easy.
You can spend forever just trying to do that, and that's not what we're.
But I mean, like they've like 2 of them have changed title because the original title didn't no longer reflected the story.
All 3 of them have changed titles, actually.
Oh yeah, what was the
very slightly? The one night
only changed just a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was kind of like, I don't know. I think you can tell me if you've thought about this. I haven't been worried about them having a fit like together because I think the loose theme is fine. And the fact that they're all pretty different is what we're trying to showcase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons, this wasn't a big reason, but one of the reasons why Escrow of the Damned became Escrow of the Damned. By the way, that like I love that title. And that title, I think, showed up maybe 12 hours before the Kickstarter launch.
We were revising the graphic and being like, well, because it had the word beyond in it originally. Yes. And so once Mission Beyond the Moon became Mission Beyond the Moon, when we put them together, it was like, oh, they both say beyond. We have to change it. And then we did, we did some spur of the moment.
Yeah.
Renaming until we're like, oh, that looks good.
Yeah, and it was good. It's good. I really like it. It sends shivers down my spine. But what was I saying? I was saying,
I don't know. I was saying that we weren't too worried about making them all fit together because we're trying to show their diversity.
We were actually, since it was the last one we were making, right? Because we started, we each took one as like sort of like took it under our wing, and so that left this Escrow of the Damned kind of just sitting there. There were decisions made in the other ones just like that, like the title that changed that one, and so that we can make them different enough, right? Like that was the thing. We wanted to make sure we weren't just doing a collection of, like, it's not that every annual, like, again, we're looking towards doing this every year, and some years we might have like a very cohesive theme and just be like, here's the same scenario in 3 different settings or whatever, like,
or an annual that's one big thing. That's like one like campaign, for lack of a better word, is one thing or something like that.
We're really excited about being able to experiment with the form of the annual each year, because that that's just a thing that we want to be able to do. And
that sounds fun.
Yeah. But like we said earlier, we want to also establish, like, if we come out with something weird right off the bat, we're already like really trying to let people know that it's Nathan and I. Like, there's like several layers of recognition we have to get through, right? Like, have you heard of our game? Like, okay, good. We're the same people. Now we're over here, but it's a different title. And like, it just like, it gets very like, along the way,
Okay, so this is Nathan and Epi, and then we walk behind the curtain, and now we're wizards, okay? And then now we're in a library, okay? Just a lot of looking back. All right, everybody. Okay, all right. Now
everyone's so good. Yeah,
and
I think that's part of like.
And now this is a role playing game, and so.
I think that was part of just being like, let's just do the very like straightforward, like, we're going to have a little thing for each of our games in each of these that make it like, so like One Night Only has a Worldwide Wrestling custom move. Mission Beyond the Moon will have the swords, scrolls, and Escrow of the Damned is going to have a dread like layer to like do something with Jenga representing the different houses, basically, and like how what's happening inside. I don't know. Epi's figuring that out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Well, by the time we release it, we will have figured it out. Okay, and that's the promise that we're making.
That is our promise to you.
By the time you have it in your hands, we'll have figured it out.
It will be figured out. Yeah, I'm confident that we can do that.
That would be really funny though, as you print the books and it's like Escrow of the Damned. It's like, it's coming. Hang on, we'll mail it to you. We'll figure it out.
We're going to send you a sticker page that you just stick over that.
It's a legacy rule book. Once I figure out the rules, you take the sticker and you put it in this little spot. You put it in spot A, and that's the rules.
Yep. God. We'll file that idea away for another annual.
That would be really funny though. Gosh, that would be so funny. Yeah, and I definitely understand the balance as someone who said literally it's got to be really weird to be engaging. The balance is important because you want, like you said, you want people to go, oh, this is these guys. I'm excited to see what these guys are doing and be on board with the weirdness of the concept. If maybe, and then the adventures are like, yeah, this is like all of these as a compliment sound like movies you would see, like movies from the 80s that would be on in the middle of the day on the weekend. You know, where like,
that's basically the vibe we're going for.
Yeah, where it's like, where it's like, what was this? That's the movie you don't catch the first 20 to 25 minutes of on TBS, and you're like, what's happening? What?
It's like, I've seen the second half of this movie 6 times.
Right.
Yes.
I will
never know the main character's name.
I never catch the beginning, but I'm always there by the time they start the wrestling match. I'm always there. Like I'm always
there. I'm in.
I've never seen the mechanic, but I always catch the wrestling.
Just the cameo at the end.
Yeah, where he's like, "You're all good, boss," and that's it. That's all I ever see.
Yep.
I love those. I miss those movies.
There's a movie. I think it's called The Land That Time Forgot. Let me just look that up. Now I'm feeling like
This feels like a bit. I know he's not doing a bit. This feels like a bit.
Right. So The Land That Time Forgot. It's a based on Edgar Rice Burroughs. It came out in 1974. I think this is the one I'm thinking of. It's a dinosaur movie, right? Like we're gonna have dinosaurs.
Sure.
It's great. But the first half of it is this incredibly intense World War I U-boat drama. Because what happens is you have like this U-boat that picks up, like, I think they like, I can't remember exactly. They might have sunk a ship or something, but they pick up some people that are in like a lifeboat, and now they're in this German U-boat, but they're not they're not the Germans, and they have to they're trying to figure out how they can take over the U-boat, and all of that is playing out, and I'm like really into it. I completely forget that I got a dinosaur movie from the library. And then when they take over the U-boat, they're lost and they surface in the land that time forgot. And then there's dinosaurs. And I'm like, and it's exactly that. It's like this, like you may have seen the last half of this movie and you may have seen the first half of this movie time and time, but you never put the two together because like there's this very distinct divide right in the middle.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, that's what we're going for.
Yeah, that's
that vibe, exactly. That thing.
Oh, I was just like early on, the early part, the very early, I guess, draft, the concept of the escrow of the damned was me writing a much more esoteric game about nostalgia and being sold nostalgia and things like that. And then not only did we step away from that because we needed something a little bit more accessible and I didn't really have a place to go with that, but also every single one of these games is all about our nostalgia. So we're just like, our hypocrisy only goes so far. That's
you can only turn that so much.
Yeah.
Right. I wrote an adventure about how people who pretend to be other people are losers and are unfulfilled in life. And you're like, oh, wait, no, we can't. They might not buy that one. So for each of these, I don't know how the writing process went, so I'll make assumptions. For each of these scenarios, did you? I imagine you went in with like one approach, kind of locked in, and then expanded to others. What was the process of sitting down, taking the scenario, and saying, here are the approaches that we want to explore. Here are the approaches that feel, big air quotes, worth it to try to design for.
Yeah. There's some interesting things that happened when we were working on. You're talking about approaches as in how we've been applying them, right?
Yeah,
like make sure.
The vibes. The vibes.
Yeah, the vibes. Yeah. There was an interesting thing that happened with One Night Only. One of the approaches that I had early on was the mystery approach, and I kept writing this sort of convoluted moments where I was like, if you're doing mystery or horror, do this. And then if you're doing anything else, do this. And it's just over and over again. And two of the things I realized in that was, number one, mystery wasn't a vibe for this. It wasn't that it wasn't a bad vibe. It just wasn't like an approach you need to take.
Right. It was the mystery part was always kind of because of the horror part.
Exactly. Yeah. So there is no place where I wrote mystery where I didn't immediately follow it with horror, or the other way around, right? So I was like, yeah, the only time we need to care about mystery is horror. Otherwise, it's fine. It's great dramatic irony. I'm a big fan of dramatic irony. And of course, like, a wrestling story is all about dramatic irony, right? Like, there's so many layers that, like, of like, who knows what, when, and where, and also
who's pretending to know what and why.
Yeah, exactly. And then so many spots where it's like, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter. Like, it's great.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I was like, okay, let's carve that out, and let's, the mystery might work for another one. That's fine. But like, in this particular case, it was interesting to me to discover, because it felt like an absolute shoe-in when I started writing it. I was like, well, of course, there's a big mystery at the, like, what's this town's secret keeping? But then I think the thing that put me over the top was that there's a moment where I was like, but what happens when you solve the mystery? Like, what? Right, or if you don't, and you go wrestle and it's revealed to you, like, it's a little, framing it as a mystery is anticlimactic in any way that thing ends.
I think we were talking about it, and it's like, solving the mystery doesn't change the story.
Right.
Yeah. So you've just kind of like, as a person, if you're doing that approach, you're probably you have a GM running it, and you're withholding some of the information so that it can come out, with these surprises for players. And it's like, but what was the point if them discovering it the Thursday or the Friday doesn't change anything that they're going to want to do or that we're asking them to do? But what it does change is the like, oh, what my character is going to do when they suddenly understand that they're there to get sacrificed. Like, that's a reveal that's like, ooh, like, has some juice in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, mystery is definitely an element to all of this, but again, it's secondary. It's never its own approach, which was kind of a discovery. I think one thing we found was that, like, that each of them needed to have their own set of approaches, like, as opposed to being like, all right, here are the approaches, and each scenario is going to have horror, cozy, comedy, something else or something. And then that was too restrictive. There's no unifying theory of approach.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So nice cozy time fighting dinosaurs through the moon portal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, I mean, you could do that, obviously, but in terms of like, what are we going to focus on with the actual material? So that was kind of freeing in that it's like, okay, we're treating the approaches are a tool that we get to use. They're not a constraint that we have to build towards, which is fun. And I've been doing most of Mission Beyond the Moon, and the one thing that I found is, like, because there's a couple moments that are like, so the approaches for that one are basically like sword and sorcery adventure, like strange exploration in this weird world, thriller, like thriller escape kind of thing, like you're caught in this place and now how do you get back, and then like this sci-fi, like problem solving, like the Star Trek version, basically, where it's you are a crew of competent astronauts and like you're facing problems, and having those kind of in mind, and then in different moments being like, okay, so what is the business here for the sci-fi problem solving? Like, because there should be something here, and like having that as a tool to generate more material inside like a location for a character has been really fruitful, because it's like I have a reason to make a decision that I would not have made otherwise if I was just doing this as full like pure pulp, sword and sorcery. So that's kind of the other direction where like Epi found like, oh, these two actually kind of are the same, and I'm like, oh well, if I make sure to focus on this one as well, that's giving me this whole other palette of like things to put into the adventure.
Yeah. And I want to like, I guess, state for the record, I think it'll be stated in the book, but like, you're welcome to combine approaches if you think you could, like if they work for you. Yeah. If they work for you or whatever. We're not like saying that these are mutually exclusive, although some of them might appear mutually exclusive, like on the face of it. But like, I think it was incredibly fruitful activity. Like for same thing, like you look at a thing and you're like, okay, got to come up with some business for this, and I want to make sure that there's enough business for this approach. So let's
am I under supporting this approach because there's only like one thing for it? Either then we should take it out or find opportunities to build a little more in, and then you get a more well-rounded scenario.
I think it's interesting also, like you said, that this was, most of this is an exercise in like intentionally challenging yourself with design, of saying like this is to try to design something. This is to force us to think of ways to design something, which I think is really is a really cool idea, because you kind of have to design every bit like 5 or 6 different ways. Or I guess not 5 or 6 different ways, but like you have to have you come up with the scenario, you come up with the whole idea, and then you're like, okay, now I have to go back through it with sort of this lens and see what I'm missing. And then I have to go back through it with this lens. Oh, actually, I need to go back because I've realized, like Epi was saying, like, okay, so mystery doesn't really fit. So actually, I need to trim this up a little. And I like the idea. I'm like, as we're sitting here chatting, like I'm getting ideas of all the fun different ways you can run these adventures.
Right. Then we've done something right.
Yeah. And I think that's great. Like I think that is, to me, that is always the sign of good writing, good design, good, it in the way to mean so many different media is good art, is you see it and it immediately grabs you. And like, regardless of what it is or whatever, you see it and you're like, whoa, and that's great to me. Like I always, this is not a video game, but I always say, like, I'm a big fan of the 7 out of 10 video games, the video games that are like, oh, they tried something. It wasn't, it was a little janky and it broke a little bit, but they tried something new here. They took a shot.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't want to particularly say this in the context of our own product, but I will say it that like, I far prefer a thing that fails interesting than something that succeeds boringly. Boringly? Let's say boringly.
Let's say boringly. That works. We can. But yeah, it's exactly that. Like, I would rather, there's usually more enjoyment. There's usually more sauce there. There's more things to be interested in the works that are trying something new, that are trying a different idea. And I think, if nothing else, that's a great reason to check this out. I was looking through the preview on the itch page, which I was surprised at how substantial that was. I didn't expect that to be. It's like 30 pages, and I was like, "Holy cow!"
Yeah. I think I was surprised at how substantial that was as well. He was like, this is going to be a little longer than I thought, and then I added a bunch of wrestling stuff.
So it's fun because I realized that this didn't come through. Okay, so a little bit about the technical side of our process. I'm writing them on my I'm writing one night only on my computer. I'm doing it in like a text editor, not even like a word processor. Doing it in Markdown. We have this website called Ellipsis that we're doing drafts on. I guess we just started using it because we thought it was going to do something that it hasn't quite yet started doing. But
it's a collaborative writing tool that is expressly not doing AI stuff. Like, has an express non-AI stance, and so we're like, let's do that instead of Google Docs.
Yeah,
like at bare minimum, like trying to move away from all those all that stuff.
As we always hit in every episode, fuck AI.
Yeah, fuck AI, right? Like some stuff is still very entangled, but at least here we have a different, an alternate tool we can use. Anyway, you were saying.
Yeah, and so I'm writing in Markdown, which is for the benefit of anyone out there who doesn't know, it's just like a plain text format for you to like say, I'd like this to be a header. Like you put asterisks around a word and that italicizes it. You could do this in Discord. This is Discord,
I was going to say this is Discord chat.
yeah. And or like you could put a pound sign at the beginning of a pound followed by a space, and it makes it the header 1, 2 pounds followed by a space, the header 2, that kind of thing. I like that because it's very portable. And I also have a very minimal. I get distracted. I don't know. There's something that happens with like how word processors and when things pop up and try and talk to me. But
Epi hates Clippy. You heard it here first.
Yeah. Once again, fuck AI. But the way I do comments in Markdown are just using HTML comments. So again, it's just like a certain characters you put it before and after a line. It's just like, hey, don't put this in the document, but this is a just a note to myself or whatever. And somewhere about halfway through the project, I started doing that, adopting that pattern as I was working on my computer, and then I'd plug it into this site. And it didn't occur to me that those comments get erased on the site because they're just comments, so it ignores them, and that which is what it should do or whatever. Well, whatever. No, the point is that the document on my computer has like a big spot that's like, okay, Nathan, have at it. like here's like a section that's just like the title is like wrestling, and I'm like,
wrestling stuff.
Wrestling stuff. Like, I don't know, just you do it. And but I mean, I posted about this on the social medias, like this thing where I have this plain text format that I'm looking at while I'm typing, and then every so often I'll look up, because we sometimes do co-working on our Discord where both of us are on there, and I look up and Nathan's like got the stuff I've been typing in a layout with this gorgeous art from an artist that we have, and it's just this magical like oh, okay, yeah. And as part of that, like, oh, I've written 30 pages. Like, I didn't know that. Like, my head was down, and
I wrote a bunch of things, and now it's a book.
Yeah.
Now it's a. I love that.
No.
Does it? No, go ahead.
Oh, you were saying you were looking at the preview. I didn't know if you had a particular.
Oh, yeah.
Question or observation that you were going for.
I really enjoyed the layout. If I open it, I bet you it'll be super bright and blast my video. It's not that bad. See, this is what I was saying earlier about the line between like casual and professional. If I was more professional, right, I'd have like another light and it wouldn't be that bad. Mm-hmm. No, can't do that. What caught me immediately was just how, like, and this is a silly way to describe it, is how readable it is. It's very easy to read.
Oh, good.
And I was just reading. Yeah. Well, so it's a thing. It's come up once or twice, specifically when talking about TTRPGs, is the very delicate balance with text and layout, and like how you make text that's readable and how you then lay it out in a form that makes it continue to be readable, which is different from legible, I've been told. And like, I was shocked. It's linked. So it's like, oh yeah, if you want to know what they could do on the farms, here's a little, and I was like, oh my God, I can just click this and I can see the thing. It's always exciting to me when a preview thing feels complete already to an extent. And I'm not, hey, I don't know the process. For all I know, it's changed and this is the preview and this is works. And Nathan's changed 18 things about the layout. I don't know nothing about that. But it's so legible in terms of call outs and like the reason I always make a point for this is like I have very specific diagnosed and undiagnosed learning disabilities. And so it takes a lot to me to just engage with words.
Yeah. Just a wall of text. Yeah.
Right. Just like, oh, here's a bunch of words. And it's like, oh, all right, that's hard. But this very specifically, even in the early pages where it is just a bunch of text, it gets a lot better once it gets into here are the specific scenarios with all of the approaches, and there's
breakups of the call outs and stuff.
There's call outs and graphics, and that helps a ton. But even just the beginning where it's like, all right, strap in, buddy. Here's what's going on. Let's get ready. It's the Star Wars crawl. Let's go. It was immediately so legible. That, like I said, I'm so excited to read through this thing and see what's going on.
That's great.
Thank you. Yeah, we're definitely like interested in. We've just been talking about this recently about how to make the material as like, I mean, accessible both in terms of like capital A accessibility, but like in terms of usefulness at the table. Like we're gonna experiment with doing something where the digital version is, has like the PDF that's matching the text and has links and stuff, which is a great feature you can do in the PDF, but also then having separate reference sheets that are basically like all the stuff for an approach in one place. So like if you're doing one night only wrestling mode, that's like this set of like 3 or 4 pages that you could print or have on a tablet or something that just has that kind of excises out the approaches that aren't relevant and just kind of has it all in one place. Or if you're doing horror mode, that's like 3 pages and maybe has an extra little call out of like really concentrate on making this a reveal at the end, right? Because that's where the horror part comes from. I don't know how this will be an experiment. Trying to make things readable is something I try to do.
And I think it's been very interesting the last few years how much work people have been doing with saying like, hey, the PDF doesn't need to just be a digital version of the book. The PDF can be the PDF has, or the digital version, because it doesn't necessarily have to be a PDF. This digital version of the book is its own experience, is its own format, is it, has benefits and drawbacks and ways that we can move around it. I always think about, the conversation I had with somebody about Morkborg, where I was like, I kind of hate Morkborg because I can't read it. Like it's incredibly difficult to read. And they're like, well, they made a plain text version. I was like, okay, cool. I'm glad because they should, and it's that very fun thing of like, how do we use the digital tools? Like I don't know enough about screen readers to say, hey, how do you put a PDF through a screen reader? That sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like, how does that work? I know there's been a push for like plain text versions for stuff for a while. I'm not a designer. It's having those conversations is difficult for me as a person who is not a designer and doesn't require those specific disability aids, right? Is like, well, how easy or hard is it? Is this actually solving a problem, or is this a thing that just like, oh, it just makes us feel better to do this, like, is this actually helping? I say all that to say, like, I love the idea of just having the specific approach highlights, because I know, once you read a thing once or twice, you're like, okay, I know how I'm going to run this, and you don't need to read the book, but you're like, you know what, I would like to have like my beats, the things I got to remember that, okay, I'm running this in horror mode. Here's the horror mode for that sort of thing.
There's a thing about when you think about role-playing text, right? Like as a thing, as a material thing. I was going to say physical thing, but it could be a PDF or whatever. But like, you know what I mean? Not like, because there is a divide between like the role-playing game and the actual rules text, right? Like I had an experience last year where somebody was actually doing a dread signing at a local game store, and somebody like approached me and was astounded that someone wrote that game. He was like, I just thought it was like a tradition that people played, and which I take that as like kind of a compliment. Like I think that's pretty awesome. But nonetheless, like we do have this divide, right? Like when we talk about a role playing game, we have a concept of it that is separate from the rules text itself. Wow, I'm going off on the wrong tangent. What I mean to say is, talking specifically about the rules text, there's a lot of things it has to do, a lot of beings it has to be. Like it first of all has to grab your attention. Like if it doesn't do that, nobody ever picks it up, nobody ever plays it. But it also has to be kind of like a thing that you enjoy just sitting and reading, have nothing to do with playing the game. Like you just need to, like, if we're going to get someone to play it, we need to entice them to read it. Like, can you imagine lying in bed at night, getting, ready to go to sleep and just paging through it or flipping through the PDF or whatever? Like, it needs to do that. But that object is very different from something that you want to bring to the table, right? Like, because you want to be able to access the things more quickly, certain things more quickly. There's lots of fun, flowery text that doesn't mean anything to you in the moment when your friends are looking at you, waiting for you to say or explain something to them. And yeah, so just like throughout, there's just a lot of different things that it's got to do. And they provide interesting challenges to designing it. Like it's one of the reasons why I can't speak for Nathan here, but I assume we just been doing it for so long is just because it's not, it's not rote. You can't just, I guess, haven't just come up with like the solution and been able to kind of just stamp them out, right? Like that's
I think we both, both of us have been doing like bespoke, here's a whole game kinds of projects, right? So I think we both have a healthy respect for like, this kind of game might need this kind of presentation in order to communicate, while this other kind of game can use a different kind of presentation. Like that's part of the design is like, how do you bridge that final gap from like someone who picks it up to actually playing it? And like, that is also part of, at least for us, like that is also part of the design of the game. So we are, thinking about that with this as well.
So we've talked a couple times as we're getting near the end, because it's already been 90 minutes. So for the sake of everyone's time, it flies by.
Yeah, it does.
I interviewed somebody very recently. His podcast is like roughly 20 minutes. He's a couple questions. You kind of come in with a main question, and it's just a little bit of chalk. Do the question, boom, done. And so he was like, I don't know how we're going to fill 2 hours. That seems like so long. And then we got to the end, and I was like, there we go, 2 hours. You thought? And he was like, whoa, I didn't even. He's like, I didn't know it was 2. I didn't even realize. And I was like, yeah, you get stuck in, and the middle disappears. You have like a rocky 10-15, and then you're done.
Yeah,
and you don't even realize it. The future of the work has come up a couple times. And I believe you've said kind of explicitly the idea is to do one of these every year, which is a fantastic idea. I think that's a great sort of release, quote unquote, schedule, to keep it consistent but fresh. I do miss I miss the days, and I wistfully, as though this ever was a thing, of like magazines, like the D&D days that I wasn't a part of, in the third and fourth edition, where you'd be like, here's my monthly magazine with my new player options and my new dungeon. That's fun. I just don't. That's not realistic anymore. I don't think.
I was playing lots of Magic. I got the Duelist magazine in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
A lot of good posters came with that magazine, to be perfectly honest.
That's not surprising. They make a lot of art, so
Yeah, that's great.
What I like asking everybody this, like, what's the next step? Like after the Kickstarter, after fulfillment, right? Everything goes off without a hitch. You know, what do you see the next steps being? What are the very tenuous ideas?
Wow. Well, we do have plans. So the Symposium is is a publishing entity, right? So our current plan is that the annual has an annual cadence where we do one each year. But then we will also be both bringing in some of our older titles under this umbrella. So we've already started doing that with some of our smaller stuff where it's like, this is kind of thematically right. So Epi's Time and Temp, temp workers solving temporal anomalous situations for minimum wage. Game is an Unwritten Earths game now, and my Masks of the Mummy Kings tomb raiding adventure sword and sorcery game, which is basically just a Swords Without Master hack, is also under this umbrella now. But so we'll be doing some of that, and then we're also going to be creating new standalone titles that might be totally new things or new editions of some of the older stuff. So that's kind of like the game product release stuff. But then we also have our podcast, the Unwritten Earth Symposium podcast, which we have been doing pretty good at keeping regular bi-weekly release since we started that at the end of last year. And that's where we are continually trying to trick each other into doing the work of like designing the game. So the other person can do the fun part of like not having to do the design.
Yeah.
And just like helping. But we're also, a lot of that is we're talking about games and design as practitioners and as kind of to an audience of like fellow practitioners is kind of the idea. We're happy to talk about like basic stuff or, core ideas or whatever, but also we will go into detail about, dice math if Epi needs to. As he so often does.
Sometimes I need that release. I gotta.
But
get
something
that's
that's
stressed during episode. I gotta talk about dice math. I gotta talk about. Hang on. We gotta take 5 minutes. What are the odds on 3d8? Let's.
I'll send you the clip from our latest episode of going into some dice math. You can just drop it in here.
I love that. Yeah.
But we've also been doing game discovery where we go to titles in our libraries and find the arcane gems of wisdom that lie within them that we can steal and use and build on. And that's been really, really productive just in terms of like keeping ideas happening, like kind of unexpectedly, I think.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask forget what the homework was for the next episode, because I think that
our homework for the next episode is we picked games, we did the die roll, and we picked games from our itch library, and I wrote them down so I can send that to you if you don't remember the one that you had.
So we randomly roll we do a different kind of decision thing each time we pick a game, but this time we rolled a die and counted down on itch to that number of games that we own, and then pick the first one that was after that was a role-playing game. Right. And I think both of us, well, anyways, that's for the future episode, but I've really, really enjoyed that particular aspect of our podcast, because it gives you a chance to I'm it's off camera here, but I'm just literally surrounded by physical games that I've collected over the years, and now I feel like there's a reason for them. Like a lot of them I haven't had a chance to play or Well, so a lot of them I haven't never had a chance to play. Like I bought them when I was like young, and I was like, well, I'll convince my friends to play Earth Dawn or
this is a wizard on the cover. Like this.
Yeah. My friends will play this wizard thing.
Yeah. And it just never came about, you know. So it's
I'm scared of the I'm scared of the number I would need to roll a die for all of my games I own on itch.
Yeah.
Like I'm scared of how big that die would need to be conceptually.
Yeah, there's different things. Like we did one where we matched a color palette to a game on our shelf. So like whatever game had the closest, I had like a yellow and purple, and you had like a green and purple palette that we'd randomly generated. And it was like, what, you know, which one is this? Or sometimes it's like the first game from, you know, the mid, you know, the first game from 2000 to 2009 that starts with the letter A on your shelf. Like basically just trying to get ourselves into spots where we're not always going to the same references all the time. Was kind of the start of the idea. Anyway, so that's something that we do on the podcast, but we also like, you know, talk about game history, like as it relates to what we're doing. We answer questions from people in our Discord, where we're trying to build kind of a community of people who are interested in games, but also working on games. That's kind of a positive place to just be like, hey, I'm working on this thing. And not be like super rigorous, but be kind of like a place where we could give each other, you know, some positive energy and help each other out when we run into snags. And yeah, so that's been, people have been joining and having good conversations there. So that's been great. And ideally, eventually we want to be in a position where we're not always having to do crowdfunding for everything. Right.
Yeah. That's the goal.
Because who knows how long that model is going to be continue to work, or at least, you know, Kickstarter style crowdfunding. So we do have a Patreon that's that's like supporting the podcast specifically, but also our general design work. And people who are our patrons also are going to get the annual. That's like part of the deal. And so we're hoping to grow that over time. Once we have something to show, be like, hey, this is the thing. So if you're interested in more of this thing,
join our Patreon. Oh, sorry. Pause for a moment. So I jumped in. I apologize.
Yep. Hopefully those will come straight on top of each other.
I'll trim that half a second. It'll be great. You'll finish each other's sandwiches.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's that podcast is such a great idea as a seed for the annual, because you're like, oh, we're talking about this game, and then okay, here's 5 1-sentence here. You go into a portal on the moon and fight dinosaurs, and then you're like, okay, well, we need ideas for the annual. Hey, these are the ones that are exciting. Here's the ones that seem fun.
Or the stuff that sticks with us from a conversation we had 6 months ago. Right.
You're like, you know what was a fun idea when we talked about playing Earth Dawn, and we had, you know, that was a good time. Let's write something about that. And that's people. I don't think people realize how many games there are. There's so many games. And then I don't even mean like if we start talking about like all of the stuff that's been released on itch over the last few years. Even before that, there's so many games.
I mean, I think I started saying this like 10 years ago now, where I was like, there are 20,000 new games every year. And I think I'm wrong. I think I'm off now. I think it's like an order of magnitude more.
There's one thing that we do is we go down memory lane and you know, as old people in this space, one touch point we have is that there was a time, right, in the early 2000s where you could go to the Forge booth at Gen Con and get everyone's new game that they made that year.
Just there it is. Here we go. I got them.
Yeah. And then you just have your stack of like 20 books or whatever. And it's like, well, these are all the interesting games from our community that are out right now. And that was possible for like 1.5 years, maybe. But like, and then ever since then, it's like, how am I supposed to keep up with all these games? It's like, nope, that just keeps that ocean just keeps growing, which is good, which is where we want to be. But letting go of the idea of that that like I personally can like keep up with what's going on in games. That was a bit of a struggle to be like, I just have to let go of that idea of like,
it was a complete emotional journey.
Yeah. There's just so many little, not just little, but like so many communities that are around a certain game or around a certain kind of play or around a certain social situation that I'm just like never going to see. And then something will come out of them and splash over into my thing. And I'll be like, where did that come from? But someone who's been over there was like, oh, let me give you the lineage of this thing that's been 10 years in the works. Right. And just embracing that is like, right, this is better. This is healthier.
Right. This is a better ecosystem. Like the idea that something far over there in terms of internet space is there's hundreds of interesting things that sometimes something will crash into where I am. And then what I get to do is discover all of these works that I had no idea of, and all of these people doing all of these creative things, and that's good, that's exciting. It is a thing that happens a lot in video games as well. Is someone will be like, here's this video game that I love and I've been playing for hundreds of hours, and I'm like, I've never heard of that. What is that?
Yeah.
What do you mean? What? It's what?
You can do a thing where like, I guess I'm the only person who has never heard of this.
Yeah. Does everybody know what this is? Does everybody?
Like everyone?
Oh, wow. All right. Okay. I guess I just.
It's gotten so bad that I have like old friends who I talk to regularly who release games and like be done with the release before I even know about them. Right? like that's the again, like we used to know. Not only know, but like be forced to play test like everything that was going to come out that year. You know, like it just was like a much smaller. And like I know we're like sort of waxing nostalgic about it or whatever, and I want to be like crystal clear. The reasons why it was much smaller are like not good. Right, like it's because there were economic barriers to a lot of people. There were like a lot of. So it's like I'm not like being like we should go back to that time or anything like that. It was a different time.
What it does mean is the thing of like, if you want people to know about your thing, you kind of have to talk about it constantly.
Yeah,
is true, even though it feels like, you know, on the promotions. I mean, I think you know this as well as anyone, Matt. Like, as someone with a thing, you're like, hey, check out my thing, and you feel like that's all you do. Like I'm doing is like constantly doing this thing.
I'm starting to have that with the podcast where I'm like every time I'm working, every time I'm editing, or every time I finish an interview, I'm going to post about it so that maybe I'm probably still a little too on the side of not talking about it enough, but I hope I'm on the side of not being annoying enough about it. And it's consistent with like, I think about it, you know, it's not like, oh, random on a Sunday, I'm going to talk about the podcast. It's like, no, I just did a thing. And so I'm going to talk about it. I
mean, like one of the goals of the Patreon model that we're trying to embrace here with the annual is to not have to run a Kickstarter campaign every year, because that's so much work that could be done doing other things. Like if we can fund it through just like people who've subscribed to the podcast, then we don't have to we can make the thing, we can put it out, that can be noise when it comes out, like that we can make a big celebration about it, but then we don't have to like spend a month concentrating on getting all the funding. We can move on, we could do something else.
That said, this month we are concentrating on getting the funding.
Absolutely.
So
having said that, though, the Kickstarter.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, but and just to complete that thought, my thought from earlier, like, no matter how much you promote, at the end of the day, you like run into someone or talk to someone the day after your thing is done, and they're like, "Oh, I had no idea you were doing that." And so, like, you know,
it comes to a thing. I don't remember when it came up, because sometimes I like to be like, oh yeah, it was the last one or the one before or whatever. I don't remember when it came up exactly, but I think part of what was kind of the impetus behind this podcast, like the momentum that got me to finally start the podcast. This is a thing I've wanted to do for years, just the idea of sitting down and talking with somebody about how they make their thing, what inspired them to make the thing, how did they decide? Because I'm pretty sure I've said this before, I have weirder questions that I want to know, but aren't interesting like radio. Like what paperweight did you decide? Like, how many pages did you? Are you trying to keep it under 100 pages? Is that like a thing at the printer where if it's 100, that's not interesting. Nobody cares about that.
Oh, and I'm happy to talk about that stuff.
Right.
Maybe we'll do a follow up.
People who are interested in that are people who are also interested in making their own stuff, and so like there's a different space for that, right? But so what kind of like finally gave me the momentum to start this was like the idea. This did just come up on one of the last ones of Charlie Hall had that Polygon article talking about how this is a great time for creators to be loud about their works, and people had their reactions to it. Most of them were correct. I agree with just about everybody, but some people were more reasonable about it than others, and that's fine. I really think in the age of so many desperate online communities, so many disconnected social spheres on the internet, on Blue Sky and any number of Discords, wherever, we're bringing forums back. It's 2025. Forums are back. If you are a fan of a thing, you owe it to an extent to the person that you enjoy their work and support them monetarily to share that as well. Like, I think there's a certain amount of responsibility. I don't want to say you have to take because, hey, you don't have to do anything. I'm a guy on the internet. I feel like you should to help deal with that, right? A great example, whenever Nathan has a new Kickstarter, I share it everywhere because I've been a fan of Nathan's stuff since, original Worldwide Wrestling, every Kickstarter, everything. I'm like, my buddy Nathan has a new thing. Go check it out. Like, it's great. You'll love it. World of Wrestling's amazing. And I think that there is a part of there's a part of the way the internet is now. That relationship has changed where it used to just be Nathan made a thing and he went, hey, here's a thing. And people were like, oh, cool.
Great.
And that's great. And now you make a thing and you're like, I made a thing. And some people see that. And I feel like there's an amount of effort that those people need to put in to continue that broadcast.
I think good to remember that if you're enthusiastic about something, that energy is infectious, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're excited about a thing, and we made jokes about it at the top here, but I like suddenly found myself in an opportunity to learn how to get a ham radio license, and I was like, yeah, let's do this. And like just saying that, just stating on the internet, I think that the post was like, fuck it, I'm gonna get my ham radio license. All these ham radio operators started following me, and they were like, yeah, you should do it. And like that's great. Like how that feels great. I just think that like that kind of enthusiasm, like it's tough nowadays, but if we could like throw that in the mix, it can help, right? Like, it's good stuff.
And it's the same as it's always been, right? Word of mouth is the best way to spread, to advertise, especially now that pretty much all the actual like pay money for advertising avenues are not good or are actively evil, like are on a spectrum from not effective to actively evil for most of the places that are accessible to an indie publisher. It's you got to talk about stuff, and that's just the world that we live in. So thank you for talking about
and that's like I said, that's what got me to finally start this, and it's kind of been my ethos, and it's an energy that I want to inhabit, and I want to encourage other people to inhabit in 2025. Is, hey, there's a lot of bad stuff happening right now, and there's since the podcast has started, and I've said that, it's gotten worse. It's gotten worse since the last interview I did. And a very small way that we can try to help deal with, combat, overcome that badness is by supporting each other. And if that means you talk about your friend's Patreon, if that means you talk about your friend's podcast, if that means you click like and share on, somebody's social media posts or somebody's TikToks or something like that, do that. That's great. That doesn't cost you nothing. If it's something you're excited about, be excited about it. And it feels silly to say, but God, just be excited about stuff. And it's all God, it's all we can do.
It's all we got. It's all we can do.
It's all we can do is just be excited about
all we can do.
Be excited about the weird little art about weird little guys.
And cyber wizards.
And cyber wizards.
And devil's realtors.
Do you know how badly I want to do
wrestlers made out of stars?
I really want to do one night only as like a DCC 0 level.
Yeah.
That'd be so funny. Cool. That's so funny to me.
Yeah.
Because there's some weird DCC like modern tables that people have written. And I just love the idea of being like, yeah, no, you have to like fight that Cyclops with 4 arms. And it's not you're fighting him in the loosest sense.
Yeah, there's a little guidance in there for like if your system is one that has like one-on-one fighting, like here's how to treat that. Think about using that for your wrestling matches, but you treat it all as like performative, like the damage is all like performative damage, right? You're like that kind of, but you can still use those rules. You can have your fight.
Yeah.
And you can either play it out, and see who, let the best wrestler win, or you could play it out kayfabe style and be like, well, you're gonna, beat the Cyclops, but let's see how let's see how the dice fall to see whether it's a like, incredible victory or whether he like takes you within an inch, that's hopefully the flexibility that we have in there.
And I think that's part of as we're wrapping up. I think that's I said earlier, part of the excitement of this style of thought, like the intentionality of design, is to get your brain working through these different genres as a reader, and then you have a fey mood where you're like, it'd be really silly to play this with. It would be a very silly idea.
I shared something about the mission beyond the moon, and on Mastodon, and somebody following me was like telling me an experience where they tried to get a GM to let them play. It was a D&D style game or whatever. Play an astronaut lost in their world as a fighter, just like a fighter, like going through all the things, and like that has happened to me many times where like I'll sit down to play a game and like perfectly be just bought completely into the concept, and then I would just be like, but what if I was a ghost astronaut? Can I make that happen with this system? Or something like that. And and so you end up with like these weird like I love it. I mean, like this is one of the reasons why I love this.
That's the kind of energy we're trying to bring into all this stuff. Like, but what if you were playing a ghost astronaut?
But what if we played Esker of the Damned, but we played it with Ghostbusters?
Right. Yes.
And that's
exactly.
I got to break out the little baggie of Ghostbuster die I bought on eBay.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you hear about something on Google Plus and it makes you go, I wonder if I can buy those. And you do. And then and now you own those the rest of your life.
Mine have the Ghostbuster symbol almost completely rubbed off. I'm so sad.
Oh no!
But it's an old. I mean, like I've played it over the years, so
that's fair. That's what happens.
It's earned.
Yeah, that's what happens. I love that. Well, listen, it's been long enough, Nathan, Epi. Thanks so much for being on.
Thank you for having us.
It hits a point where I'm just like, we have to stop.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
This has been a lot of fun. I love it. It is. I say it every time. I continue to be amazed at the people who continue to say yes, that they will be on the podcast. It's getting silly to me at this point of just like, I feel like I'm getting too many people are saying yes. And I'm like, well, what if I ask this person? They won't say yes.
Right. Means
and then they say yes.
Yeah. What power do I have?
And I'm like, wait a minute. What if could I ask this person? Would they say yes? And then they say yes. And now I'm gonna ask anybody now.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever wants to be on the podcast.
You have the power.
I'm too strong. We're gonna
that's always been your problem.
That's true. That's true. my problem has always been this is a little too much information. This is an overshare on my point. I swing between two moods, and that is overwhelming confidence and soul crushing depression.
Yeah.
And really, there's like 70% on that bar that I can operate in. Yeah, and the problem is when I get over to that right side. Mm-hmm. So I'm over here for right now, and let's keep that moving.
Let's keep that. Yeah, let's keep that energy going into the rest of our day.
Mm-hmm. But I'm gonna end off with a modified version of the 3 questions. So the 3 questions, how I always end the podcast. The first episode, I asked my guest her top 3 choices for guests for her show, and so we've just kind of kept that going. I think it's really funny to just at the tail end of the thing come up with a top 3 whatever question. And they have been funny, and then people have started being too prepared for them in a way that I find frustrating. Where I'm like, here's a silly question, and they're like, I've got an answer for you right now, and I'm like, no, that's not what I want.
Well, I'm completely unprepared, so it's that to look forward to.
That's great. Oh boy. So the last time I did this, the last time I had 2 guests on, I asked the top 2 because that's fewer answers overall, and asking 3 is a lot, depending on what it is. So what I'm going to do is it's going to be top 1 for each of you. Here, I'm going to start with Epi, just to make it a little, just make it harder for Nathan. Epi, who is your favorite TV detective other than James Rockford?
Okay.
Who's your backup? Who's your second?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm not gonna jump on Nathan's. I know who Nathan's is. I'm gonna leave it there for.
Well, here's the thing. I feel like we might be able to answer for the other person. Possibly. So I guess I don't really know who yours is.
I mean, because I have that, again, that urge to play the ghost astronaut and just be like the most wild possible answer that like only fits barely into TV detective. But
that's fine.
Actually, maybe
I'll accept that.
Maybe I'll go. What was I? You know what? I am going to go a little wild, and I'm also going to go 100% on. It's going to be Lou Grant. It's going to be Lou Grant, who is not a detective. He is from the Mary Tyler Moore Show. He was her boss. Had a spin-off show called The Lou Grant Show. So in the Mary Tyler Moore Show, she worked for a news station. He was the manager of the news, not of the whole station, but of the broadcast, right? Mm-hmm. And the spoilers, Mary Tyler Moore Show ends with them all getting fired. It's an amazing final episode. Whole run. Highly recommend the Mary Tyler Moore Show. I cannot stress that enough. Then he gets a spin-off where he goes to LA and starts working on the city desk of a newspaper there. And it's so close to a Rockford vibe. Like, first of all, like it just kind of just fits that, like, and it's all about like the sort of it's a comedy, but not like a ha-ha comedy the whole time, right? Like it's actually, I don't know if it's more drama than comedy. I don't know if they actually build it as a comedy at the time. There's funny stuff, but they deal with like a lot of serious issues, and they leave it unsettled a lot of times. But I just really love the way that they approach these mysteries of the stories they're doing as reporters instead of the armed state. You know, like it's refreshing to have like a mystery thing to be able to deal with that isn't also like, not to say, like, I've enjoyed many detective shows and I continue to enjoy many detective shows. It's a wonderful, fruitful, like just a nice genre, but also it's very like having Lou Grant out there. Also, you know, he's just a good, like, calming, like, the world needs a Lou Grant, like, daddy figure, right? Like right now. It's just like, yeah. All right, that was my answer.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't need to make it more complicated. Obviously, it's Columbo. But specifically, Columbo from seasons 1, 2, and 3 of the original 70s run, and then I guess technically they kept numbering them. So, and then when it restarted in 89-90, the first like maybe 2 seasons of that, because in between, because the later seasons of Columbo in the 70s, he kind of started, the character kind of became a parody of its own bits,
right?
In a lot of ways, like the mannerisms were like a little over the top, while the first 3 seasons Falk played the character very straight, and I think it's better TV.
It's that, and combined with the fact that he's so young, that when you see like the first Columbo, you're like, who's this guy pretending to be Columbo? Right? Like, this isn't the Columbo I remember, but this is So the first 3 seasons, and then the guy he ages into being in 1989, who is kind of recapturing that vibe, but is also old now, and that's also has the episode with the second magician episode, not the one from the 70s, but the one from the 90s, where there's a guillotine beheading, which is a great all-timer, and also the Steven Spielberg send-up episode, not send-up, but like Steven Spielberg-esque character is the murderer. Anyway, early 70s, early 90s Columbo, not necessarily late 70s, late 90s Columbo. Final answer.
I like the idea. It's like, what's the best Columbo? Right here at the beginning, right here at the end, in the middle. But it's the crust. It's the crust. This bit. Skip the middle.
Yeah, the middle gets a little weird, but sometimes that happens. You have a long thing, it sags in the middle, and then you finish out strong.
All right. So that was it. That was the end.
Yay!
It sneaks up on you. But yeah,
we did it.
Thank you so much. Like I said at the top, all the links to everything will be in the description. The Kickstarter, the Patreon, Itch page, the podcast, individual websites. There's all the stuff we talked about. The IMDb page for the good Columbo.
I'll send you the Columbo DB, or was it? Yeah, Epi knows about this. Someone cloned Letterboxd to make Columboxed, where it's Letterboxd but only for Columbo episodes.
Amazing.
So you can check it all out over there.
I love the internet sometimes. It's a terrible, wonderful, magical place. Here at the end, we'll go in reverse order. We'll go Nathan, then Epi. For little outros, just tell people where they can find you in terms of socials or websites or anything like that. Basic stuff just here at the end. Nathan, start us off.
Well, you can find the Unwritten Earth Symposium at unwrittenearths.com, and all of our links to all the things we talked about. My website is ndpdesign.com, where I have the World Wide Wrestling role-playing game, all of the other games I do, also my graphic design portfolio, and rates as a freelance graphic designer. As you have heard, I care a lot about how games turn into text. So if you're interested in talking about that, you can hit me up over there. And those places have links to everything. I'm pretty much the main like social media thing I'm on is Blue Sky. So I'm at ndpdesign.com on Blue Sky, however you turn the handle into a name. Give us some money on Kickstarter, please.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
I'm Epidiah, Epidiah. I realize I should probably spell that from time to time, because it's a if you can find that, you found me. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Dice.camp. It's a Mastodon instance.
It is definitely Mastodon instance.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, that's not the word you wanted, but that's correct.
It works. I'm also on unwrittenearths.com. So check that out in our Discord, and Dig 1,000 Holes, where you actually I have not yet put up any of my games. You can find my games in many of the online stores, but like I just realized that I've not finished my own website. The Cobbler's Children's Shoes are always in the worst disrepair. Is what it is.
Yeah, everyone go buy. I mean, all of Worlds Without Master, but specifically Worlds Without Master issue 3. It's where you find Swords Without Master. You might already own it. You know, due to
Please
the magic
check
of
because you
the
probably do own it.
I mean, buy it and then you definitely own it, and then maybe you owned it before that, but whatever. But buy it anyway. Just buy it. But that's gonna be it for us. Thank you again for listening. Go ahead and say bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Was that us?
No, you got it. Perfect. Yes. And there we have it, another finished episode of What You Doing podcast. It was such a treat to sit down with Nathan and Epi. I'm so excited to see what they come up with Unwritten Earths. It's such an interesting idea, such a cool design view to take with system adventurous design. Like I said at the top, Unwritten Earths Annual is available right now on Kickstarter. You can check the show notes for the link. It'll be right up there at the top. Like I said, it was such a treat having Nathan and Epi on the show, and I'm excited that they will come back again and again to talk about whatever awesome projects they have going on. So I hope you go check out their work, back them on Kickstarter, go check out the Unwritten Earths website and the podcast. Speaking of podcasts, thank you all for listening and checking out this podcast. I've settled into a pretty nice little loop of getting stuff done and getting new episodes out and getting interviews. And I say this every time, but it has been so much fun, such an enjoyable endeavor. I'm so glad I finally started doing this. All the links are where you expect them to be. Rate and review the show if you would be so kind. I would greatly appreciate it. But I'm gonna go play some Warframe because I've been itching to play that a little bit. But I want everybody to take care of themselves. A lot of, as I say in this episode specifically, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Please take care of yourself. Please do something kind for yourself. And I will see you in the next one.